The city was silent, broken like a ghost that refused to die. Tall stone walls were cracked, roofs had holes, and the streets were filled with dust. Shadows moved in the corners, but no laughter, no joy lived there, only hunger and fear. Among the ruins walked a small alien child, his steps slow, his eyes empty. One leg was twisted, weak from an old injury. Each step made him stumble. He leaned against the walls as if the stones could carry his weight. But the walls gave nothing, just the cold, hard truth of survival. People watched him but turned away quickly. Some whispered cruel words, why does he even try? He is useless, broken, better to hide. The child lowered his head. He was used to their voices, he was used to pain. That day, dust rose as soldiers marched through the streets. Their armor clanged, their faces hidden behind black helmets. The people bowed, trembling. But the soldiers did not even glance at the poor. They only looked for trouble, for anyone breaking the emperor's law. The child froze against a wall. He tried to be invisible. His legs shook, and in his heart he thought if they saw his weakness, maybe they would take him away. Maybe they would end the little he had. But the soldiers passed, leaving behind silence once more. When the crowd dispersed, a man remained standing in the corner. Not alien, not like the others, a human, tall, tired, wearing patched clothes covered in dust. His hands were rough, his eyes sharp. He worked in the city as a cleaner, a builder, a man no one respected. But he watched. He had seen everything. The human's gaze did not move away from the child. He saw the twisted leg, the pain hidden in the boy's small face, and something inside him tightened. It was not pity, it was not weakness, it was anger. Anger that no one cared, that no one even tried to help. The child stumbled again, falling to the ground. The dust clung to his thin clothes. His knees were scratched, his hands dirty. But no one came to pick him up. No one even offered a hand. They just walked past, pretending not to see. The human took a step forward, his boots pressed against the broken stones. He stopped, his mind whispering, "Do not interfere, do not draw attention." He knew the emperor's laws. He knew what happened to humans who showed kindness. Kindness was rebellion. Kindness was a crime. But his heart did not listen to fear. His eyes stayed on the child, and slowly, carefully, he moved closer. He bent down, his shadow falling over the boy. The child looked up, confused. Big alien eyes stared at him, filled with pain but also suspicion. No one had ever stopped for him before. And here was a human, the most hated race in the empire. The race treated like dirt, why would a human stop for him? The man extended his hand. Strong, steady, silent. The child hesitated, then slowly placed his small hand in his. The human pulled him up, brushing the dust from his shoulders. For a moment, the street froze. The world seemed to hold its breath. The child whispered, his voice weak, "Why? Why did you help me?" The human did not answer. Words were dangerous. But his eyes told the truth, eyes that said, "Because no one else will." The man looked around quickly. Soldiers were gone, the people were not watching. But he knew whispers would spread. In this city, even silence had ears. He walked away without another word. But in his mind, something had already begun. A decision, a dangerous thought. He would not watch this child suffer again. Even if it cost him his life, the child stood still, staring after the human. For the first time in years, he felt something new. Not pity, not cruelty, but hope. A fragile spark hidden deep inside the broken streets. Night fell and the city grew colder. The human sat in his small room. The walls were bare, his tools scattered. He looked at the wood he had collected from broken carts. His hands itched to shape it, to build something. Something small yet powerful. A gift that could change the child's steps. A gift that could defy an empire. The city slept, unaware of what was coming. But in the shadows of the broken streets, one man's kindness had already begun a war. The night was long in the broken city. Shadows stretched across the narrow alleys, and the air carried the sound of rattling metal sheets. Most people slept hungry, waiting for another hopeless morning. But one man did not sleep. The human sat in his small room, staring at the pile of wood and iron scraps he had collected during the day. His hands were calloused. Scarred from years of labor, he had built walls, patched roofs, fixed carts. But now he looked at the scraps with a different thought. Not for money, not for himself, but for the alien child with the twisted leg. The boy's face haunted him. The way the child fell in the street, the way no one helped, the way his weak voice whispered, "Why did you help me?" That question burned in the man's chest. He could not forget it. He did not want to forget it. He picked up a piece of wood, rough and splintered. His knife slid across it slowly, shaving away the sharp edges. The sound echoed softly in the quiet room. Scrape, 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 he worked with care, shaping the stick into something smooth, something strong enough to carry weight, something simple yet full of meaning. Hours passed. His eyes grew heavy, his hands ached, but he kept working. He fitted the wood with an iron piece from an old broken pipe. He tightened it with strips of leather he had saved. The crutch began to take form. Not beautiful, not perfect, but solid. It would help the child walk without falling. It would give him strength where his body had none. As dawn approached, the human wiped the sweat from his forehead. He lifted the crutch, testing it against the floor. It held, it was ready. But fear coiled inside him. He knew what this meant. Kindness was not allowed, the Emperor's laws were clear. A human giving anything to an alien was seen as rebellion, and rebellion was punished by chains, or worse still, he did not stop. His heart was louder than his fear that morning. The streets came alive with the noise of traders. Women carried baskets of stale bread. Children begged for scraps, soldiers patrolled lazily, their armor shining in the sunlight. The human walked slowly, the crutch wrapped in cloth. Hidden like a secret, every step felt heavy. If the soldiers asked questions, he had no answer. If the crowd saw, they might report him, but he kept moving. His eyes scanning for the child. At the corner of a ruined fountain, he saw him. The alien boy sat alone. Hugging his knees, his thin face looked tired. His twisted legs stretched awkwardly in the dirt when the human approached. The boy looked up in surprise. He remembered him. The one who offered a hand when no one else did. The man knelt, unwrapping the cloth. The wooden crutch gleamed faintly in the sunlight. The boy gasped, his eyes widened. Is this for me?" he whispered. The human nodded once, his voice low. "Yes, for you." The child's small hands touched the crutch carefully, as if it were something holy. His fingers traced the smooth wood, the iron grip. He lifted it, trembling. For a moment he hesitated. Then he pressed it to the ground and pushed himself up. 1 step shaky, 2 steps stronger, then 3. The boy's lips parted into a smile bright and full. Like sunlight breaking through clouds, he laughed. A sound so rare in those streets that people stopped to listen. For the first time in years, he walked without falling, and everyone saw it. Whispers rose in the crowd. Where did he get that? A human made it, the impossible no human would dare. The boy's mother came running. Her eyes wet with tears, she dropped to her knees, holding her son as he stood tall with the crutch. But fear soon replaced her joy. She knew what this meant. The Emperor's law had been broken. If the soldiers discovered this, there would be punishment. The human glanced around. Faces stared at him, some in awe, others in suspicion. He felt the weight of every gaze. He wanted to disappear, but it was too late. The deed was done. The boy was walking. The gift was alive. Suddenly, heavy boots struck the stones. 2 soldiers turned the corner. Their black helmets glinted. Their eyes hidden behind glass, they stopped, staring at the scene. The boy standing tall with a crutch, the human kneeling beside him. Silence fell like a blade. One soldier stepped forward. "What is this?" he barked. His voice echoed through the street. The boy's mother pulled him close, hiding the crutch behind her body. The human stood, his jaw tight, but the soldier's eyes had already seen. The second soldier smirked. "Report this," he muttered. "The Emperor will want to hear of such defiance." And with that they turned, marching away. The human's heart sank. He knew what would follow. The wrath of the Emperor. The boy clutched the crutch tighter. He looked up at the human. "Will they take it away?" he asked softly. The man placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," he whispered. "No one can take this away from you." But in his mind, he wondered, would his gift bring hope, or would it bring destruction? The morning sun lit the broken city, but that day it did not shine on ruins. It shone on a boy with a crooked leg. Standing tall with a wooden crutch, his hands trembled, but his heart beat fast with hope. The human stood nearby, silent, watching. This was the moment he had worked for. A child's first true step. The boy pushed himself forward. The crutch pressed firmly against the stone. His twisted leg followed, slowly but steady, 1 step, then another. The crowd around him gasped. their voices rising like a wave. "He's walking," someone whispered. "Look at him, he's walking." The boy's mother covered her mouth with shaking hands. Her eyes filled with tears as she saw what she had prayed for years. Her child, once mocked and pitied, now walked before all. He lifted his chin, smiling, his laughter ringing out. It was a sound the streets had not heard in a long time. Pure, free, alive. The people gathered closer, some smiling, some frowning. The crutch was no ordinary stick. They could see the care in its shape. The human craft behind it, whispers spread like fire. A human made it. Only humans work with wood like this. This is forbidden. The boy ignored them. He took another step, stronger now. The crutch carried him like a miracle. Children nearby cheered, clapping their small hands. Even the poor, tired faces of strangers softened with wonder. For a moment, hope replaced fear. For a moment, the broken streets felt alive again. But not all eyes were kind. In the distance, the soldiers stood, their helmets reflecting the light. They had already seen too much, one soldier muttered. This must reach the emperor. The other nodded. He will not forgive this insult. They turned away, their heavy boots echoing against stone. Every step they took carried doom closer to the human. The man's heart tightened as he watched them leave. He knew the emperor's pride was sharper than any blade, and he had broken the one law no human dared touch. Kindness to aliens was rebellion, and rebellion meant death. Still, he did not regret. He looked at the boy, who stood tall, proud of his small victory. The child's face glowed with joy. That glow was worth more than his own safety. The boy limped toward him, holding the crutch tightly. "Look," he said, smiling wide, "I can walk now like the others." The human nodded, forcing a small smile. "Yes, you can," he replied softly. But his mind whispered dark thoughts. For how long before they take it away? The mother stepped forward, bowing her head low. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, You gave my son his life back, human." The man shook his head. "No, I only gave him a stick. He gave himself the courage." But around them, the whispers grew louder. Some were amazed, others were afraid. "He broke the law." "The emperor will not allow this. We must stay away." Neighbors who once ignored the child now looked at the human with suspicion. Their fear was greater than their gratitude, and fear always found its way to the emperor's ears. The boy's steps grew more confident. He moved across the stones, each step echoing louder than the last. He lifted his head as if he had never been broken. As if he were whole again, children followed him, mimicking his stride, laughing. The streets felt less empty, but in the shadows, danger sharpened its teeth that night. In the palace far above the city, the soldiers knelt before the emperor, their heads bowed, their voices low but trembling. They told him of the boy, of the crutch, of the human who dared to give it. The emperor's face darkened. His golden crown glimmered under torchlight. His voice thundered, "A human gave my subject a gift?" The hall grew silent. The nobles shifted uneasily. They knew his wrath well. The emperor rose from his throne, his cloak sweeping the marble floor. "No human lifts up my people," he roared. "No human dares act as savior." His hand slammed against the arm of his throne. The sound cracked through the hall. "Find him, drag him before me." Back in the city, the human sat in his small room. He heard whispers outside, rumors spreading faster than fire. He knew the emperor's eyes were now fixed on him. He looked down at his rough hands, hands that had built the crutch, hands that had changed a child's fate. And he whispered to himself, "It has begun." The boy, meanwhile, slept with the crutch by his side. His mother sat awake, staring at it with both hope and fear. Hope that her son could walk. Fear that the gift would bring soldiers to their door. Outside, the city grew darker, but somewhere in the shadows, a spark had been lit, and no emperor, no law, could easily put it out. The emperor's palace stood high above the broken city. Its walls were covered in gold and silver, while the streets below starved in dust and stone. Inside the great hall, flames burned in tall torches, shadows stretched across polished floors, and every noble knelt low, trembling at the center. The emperor sat on his throne, his eyes glowing like fire. He had heard the report, every word. A human, one of the lowest, the weakest, had dared to give a gift to an alien child. Not money, not food, but something greater, hope. His voice thundered through the hall. "Who does this human think he is?" His hand struck the golden armrest, the sound echoing like thunder. "Are my people so weak that they must take charity from a slave?" The nobles kept their heads down, afraid to speak. One soldier stepped forward, bowing deeply. "My emperor, it was only a wooden stick, a crutch." "Silence!" the emperor roared. His cloak swept across the floor as he rose to his feet. "It is not the wood I fear, it is the spark. A spark that can light rebellion. A spark that must be crushed before it burns." He paced before his throne, his voice sharp as a blade. "Kindness from a human is poison. It makes my people forget their chains, it makes them think they are equal. And if they believe that, then my empire is finished." He stopped. Turning to his generals, "Find the man, the human. Tear him from the streets, drag him here in chains. Let the whole city see what happens when one dares to rise above their place." The soldiers slammed their fists to their chests. "As you command, my emperor." And with that, the hunt began in the city below. Whispers spread faster than fire. "The emperor knows," people said. "Soldiers are coming." Some pitied the human, some cursed him for bringing danger. Most stayed silent, too afraid to stand on either side. The human worked quietly in his small room. His tools lay scattered, the smell of wood still heavy in the air. He knew what was coming. The emperor's shadow was already on him. But when he thought of the boy's smile, the sound of his laughter, his fear softened. He whispered to himself, "If it cost me everything, it was still worth it." Across the streets, soldiers marched in formation. Their black boots shook the ground. Doors were kicked open. Families cried out as their homes were searched. "Where is he?" The soldiers demanded, "The human who made the crutch?" But no one spoke. Even those who feared him did not dare point. Silence was the only shield they had left. The alien boy clutched his crutch tightly. He could hear the soldiers outside. His mother pulled him into a corner, whispering, "Stay quiet. Don't move." But the child's eyes filled with tears. "They will hurt him, won't they?" His mother pressed a hand over his mouth. Her face pale with terror, she had no answer. The human slipped into the alleys, moving like a shadow. He knew the streets better than the soldiers. Every broken wall, every hidden corner. But he also knew he could not hide forever. Sooner or later they would find him, and when they did, his fate would belong to the emperor. He paused by the ruined fountain where he first saw the child. The place where it all began. The memory of the boy's laughter returned to him, and he smiled faintly. "If they call this a crime," he muttered, "then let me be guilty." Back in the palace, the emperor sat once more, but his fury did not cool. He imagined the human standing in front of him. He imagined crushing him under his heel. Yet a shadow of doubt crept into his heart. He remembered the soldier's words. The boy walked again. "My emperor." The crowd saw it, they whispered. They cheered. The emperor clenched his fists. It was not the human he feared, it was the people. If they believed a human could give hope, then his power would not last. He looked out the high window toward the city, and his voice was low but filled with venom. "I will make an example of him so all will learn. No human lifts my people without paying in blood." That night, the streets were restless, torches burned at every corner. Soldiers hunted through the alleys like wolves. The human moved deeper into the shadows. But the noose was closing. Every path he took led closer to capture. In a narrow street, he paused to catch his breath. The sound of boots echoed behind him, closer and closer. He gripped the wall, his heart pounding, and in that moment he knew. The emperor's fury would not stop until he was in chains. The city held its breath, waiting for the clash, waiting for the storm, and above it all, the emperor smiled in his palace, certain that his wrath would crush the spark before it became a fire. But the spark had already been lit, and nothing, not even his fury, could stop it from spreading. The streets were no longer safe. Every corner burned with torchlight. Every alley echoed with boots. The emperor's order had turned the city into a hunting ground, and the prey was only one man, the human who gave hope where there should be none. Soldiers marched in rows, their armor clanging like thunder. Doors were smashed open. Frightened families dragged outside. "Where is the human?" the soldiers demanded, but the people lowered their eyes, some out of fear, some out of silent loyalty. Not one dared betray him, not yet. The human moved quickly through the shadows, his breath heavy, his eyes scanning for escape. He knew the city better than the soldiers. He had built its walls, patched its roofs, carried its stones, but now those same walls pressed against him like a cage. Every turn felt smaller, every step louder. He ducked into a narrow alley. His hands brushed the rough stones. He pressed himself into the darkness as soldiers passed by. Their voices carried harsh and sharp. "Search every corner. He cannot hide forever. The man held his breath, the torches flickered close, then moved away. For now he was safe in another part of the city. The alien boy limped quickly with his crutch. His mother pulled at his arm, whispering, "We must stay hidden, child. This is not our fight." But the boy's eyes were full of fire. "He helped me, Mama, if they take him. It is my fault." Tears ran down his small cheeks. "He gave me this gift. I cannot let them take him alone." The mother hugged him close. Her voice shook. "You are only a child, and he is only a man against the Emperor. What can either of you do?" The boy gripped the crutch tighter. "I can walk now," he whispered. "And I will walk to him." The soldiers closed the net tighter. Shouts echoed across the night. Torches lit the sky like fireflies of doom. The human ran through broken market stalls. The smell of rotten fruit clung to the air. His boots struck against shattered glass. He slipped but caught himself. Every sound felt like it would betray him. Suddenly, a sharp cry rang out. "There he is!" A soldier spotted him at the end of the street. The human bolted, his legs pumping. The chase had begun, the soldiers shouted, their boots pounding behind him. Arrows whistled past, striking the walls. He turned sharply into another alley, but more soldiers poured in from the other side. Trapped, he darted into an abandoned house. The roof sagged, the air thick with dust. He pressed against the wall, listening to their approach. "Check inside," one soldier growled. Steps creaked on the old wood. The human crouched low. His hands reached for the only thing near him. A broken plank of wood. It was not a weapon. But if he had to fight, he would fight. The soldier pushed open the door. Torchlight spilled across the room. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked. Then a sudden crash outside distracted them. A jar shattered against the stones. The soldier cursed and turned. The noise came from there. The human blinked in shock. Someone had drawn their attention away. Slowly, he slipped out the back, his chest burning from fear and gratitude. He knew someone had risked their life to help him. It was the boy. He stood trembling in the shadows, his crutch leaning against him. He had thrown the jar to save the human. When the man saw him, his eyes widened. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. The boy's chin lifted with fragile courage. "They will hurt you. I couldn't stay hidden." The man knelt, gripping the boy's shoulders. "You must go back now, before they see you." But the boy shook his head. "No, I will not leave. You gave me legs to stand." "Let me stand for you." The man's heart twisted. He had given this child hope, and now the child was ready to risk everything. But there was no time. The soldiers were close. The sound of boots thundered again. They ran together. Through twisting alleys, broken archways, under half-fallen bridges. The boy stumbled, but the crutch kept him steady. The man pulled him along. The city became a maze of light and shadow. Behind them, the soldiers' shouts grew louder. "Catch them! Don't let them escape." The people peered from windows. Some gasped, some whispered prayers for the first time. They saw a human and an alien child running together side by side. The image planted something dangerous in their hearts, a question no one dared speak aloud. What if humans and aliens were not enemies? What if they stood together? At the far edge of the city, the human stopped. His chest heaved, his arms shaking. The boy leaned against his crutch, panting but smiling. "We escaped," the child whispered. But the man shook his head. "No, not yet. The Emperor's reach is long, and his wrath is not done." Far behind them, horns blew in the night. The sound rolled across the streets like thunder. The soldiers had not given up. They would hunt until dawn, and when they caught him, the Emperor himself would decide his fate. The boy's small hand gripped the human's. "Don't be afraid," he said softly. "You gave me strength to walk. Now I will not let you fall." The man looked down at him, and for the first time in years, he did not feel like a slave. He felt like a protector, a fighter, and in that moment he knew. The chase through shadows had only begun. The dawn broke over the broken city, but the sun did not bring warmth, it brought fear. Trumpets blared across the streets, soldiers marched in rows, and in their chains walked the human, his wrists bound, his face bloodied from the night's capture. The people crowded the square, whispers filled the air. "That is him, the human who gave the gift. They say the Emperor will judge him today." Some eyes were full of pity, others full of fear, but no one dared speak too loudly. The soldiers dragged him into the grand palace hall. The marble floor gleamed under torchlight. Golden pillars rose high, carved with symbols of power. And at the far end sat the Emperor, Draped in a crimson cloak, his crown heavy with jewels. His eyes burned with cold fury. The nobles lined the hall, whispering to one another. They came not for justice, but for spectacle. They wanted to see the emperor crush rebellion with his hand. And today, a single human would serve as the example. The human was forced to his knees. Chains rattled against the floor. The soldiers bowed before the emperor. "My lord, we bring you the traitor." "The one who dared to lift up your subject with his hand?" The emperor rose slowly, his voice echoing like thunder. "Slave!" he spat. "You broke the law of my empire. You gave to one of my people what was forbidden. Why? Why would a worm raise his hand to act as savior?" The hall fell silent. All eyes turned to the human. He lifted his head, his lips cracked but his voice steady. "I gave because no one else would. I gave because kindness is not a crime." Gasps filled the hall. The nobles stiffened in shock. The soldiers tightened their grips on their spears. The emperor's face twisted with rage. "Kindness?" he roared. "Do you think mercy is stronger than fear? Do you believe your act makes you greater than me?" He raised his hand. "Take him away, prepare the execution." But before the soldiers could move, a small voice rang out through the hall. "Stop!" Every head turned. At the doors stood the alien boy, his small frame trembling, his crutch pressed against the floor. His mother clutched his arm, begging him to stay back. But the boy broke free. He limped forward. Each step echoing louder than the last, the crowd gasped. The boy walked through the great hall, not crawling, not falling, but standing tall on the gift of a human. Gasps turned into murmurs, murmurs into shouts. The boy walks. The broken child walks again. The boy stopped before the emperor's throne, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with courage. He fell to his knees, holding the crutch high. "This man is no traitor," he cried. "This man gave me back my legs. He gave me back my life." The hall froze. The emperor's hand trembled in the air. His fury clashed with the sight before him. A child once weak and useless, now strong and proud because of the human. The boy's voice broke. "Punish me if it is a crime to walk, but do not punish him for giving me hope." Tears streamed down his mother's face as she knelt beside him. The nobles shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered, "He only gave a stick." But the boy walks. The people see it. They cannot unsee it. The emperor's jaw clenched. His pride screamed to destroy them both, to crush the spark before it became flame. But in his hall, in front of his nobles, in front of his people, the sight of a broken child rising because of a human was more dangerous than any sword. He stepped forward, towering above them both. His voice thundered, "You dare defy me with your weakness? You dare bring mercy into my hall?" The boy trembled but did not lower his eyes. The human, still bound in chains, lifted his head and spoke. "Mercy is not weakness, it is strength, and it is the one thing you fear most." The emperor's hand shook. For the first time in years, doubt flickered in his gaze. He saw not a slave, not a worm, but a man who stood tall even on his knees, and a child who refused to bow. The hall was silent. Every noble, every soldier, every servant watched, waiting for the emperor's judgment. Would he strike them down to protect his pride? Or would mercy once shown change everything? The emperor raised his arm high. The torches flickered, the air grew heavy. His voice cut through the silence. "This ends now." The emperor's hand hung in the air, heavy as iron. The hall was silent, so silent that even the flames seemed to stop their crackling. Every noble leaned forward, every soldier held his breath. One word from the throne would decide life or death. The boy knelt trembling, clutching the wooden crutch. The human remained bound, his face steady though his body bore chains. The emperor's voice thundered, "This ends now!" He lowered his arm, pointing at the human. "Execute him at once." But before the soldiers could move, a voice rose from the crowd. "No!" It was not one, but many. First a woman, then a man, then dozens more. "No!" they cried. The nobles turned in shock, the people who had always bowed their heads, silent under fear, now shouted against the emperor's will. The boy's mother stepped forward, her tears streaming but her voice clear. "If this man dies, so does mercy." Others joined her. He gave the child hope. He gave us all hope. The emperor's face twisted with rage. "Silence!" he roared. His voice shook the pillars, but the crowd did not fall silent. Their whispers became stronger, their fear cracked, and something dangerous grew in the air. The boy rose slowly to his feet, leaning on the crutch. His legs wobbled, but he stood tall. He lifted the crutch high for all to see. "This is no crime," he shouted. "This is a gift." Gasps filled the hall. Never had a child spoken to the emperor like this. Never had a crippled boy dared stand against a throne. But here he was, walking, speaking, defying. The emperor's hand shook with fury. He wanted to strike, he wanted to crush, but in his hall, in front of his nobles and soldiers, the image was too powerful. The human in chains, unbroken, the boy on his feet unafraid, and the people no longer silent. The human lifted his head, his voice calm but steady. "You may kill me, Emperor, but you cannot kill what you have seen. You cannot chain hope. You cannot silence mercy." The hall erupted with shouts. Some nobles tried to quiet the crowd, but the spark had already caught fire. The people were no longer whispering, they were speaking, shouting, daring. The emperor stepped back, his crown heavy on his brow. For the first time in his reign, he saw fear not in his people, but in himself, fear of losing control. Fear of the truth spreading beyond his hall. He waved his hand, his voice low but trembling with rage. "Take them away."
"Out of my sight."
The soldiers hesitated. Some looked at the emperor. Some looked at the boy, and for the first time, doubt flickered in their eyes too. The human was dragged out in chains. The boy and his mother pushed aside. The nobles whispered furiously. The emperor sank back onto his throne. But his heart was not calm. His wrath could silence one man, but it could not silence what had already been born. That night the city buzzed with whispers. "They say the boy stood before the emperor. They say he walked with a human's gift. They say the emperor was shaken." The story spread through the streets like wind. From the broken homes to the markets to the workers' quarters, every word carried the same truth. A human had given hope, and no emperor could take it back. In his dark cell, the human sat chained. The air was damp, the walls cold. But when he closed his eyes, he did not see the chains. He saw the boy standing tall. He heard the crowd's voices rising against fear. And he smiled faintly. "It has begun," he whispered. "The spark is alive." The boy, back in his small home, clutched the crutch tightly. He stared out the window at the torches glowing in the streets. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing: he would never crawl again. Not in body, not in spirit, and far above. In the emperor's palace, the ruler paced in anger. His fists clenched, his crown heavy. He had not killed the human. Not yet, but worse than that, he had let a story live. A story of kindness, a story of defiance, a story of a gift stronger than his wrath. The spark had been lit in the broken streets, and though he did not yet know when, the emperor felt it. One day that spark would become a fire. And when it did, no throne, no crown, no empire would stand against it.